Welcome to Wee Willy Wonderfuls video tutorial 14. In the last tutorial we left you completing a good chunk of the head because it was all instructions that we've already covered and techniques, and we are now up to row 32 on the head, so I'm going to show you how to do that. So this instruction is let's just have a look and we'll show you the instruction, is to purl 2 together times 6. So as the instructions in brackets, we're going to be repeating that instruction 6 times, and that'll leave us with 6 stitches, and then we're going to be sewing up and stuffing the head. So let's get started. So to purl 2 together is very similar to knitting 2 together, so we'll just show you how we do that. So to purl 2 together, we've obviously got the purl side showing, and we go down into the stitch like so, but we're just going to go into 2 because we're purling them together. So this essentially makes 2 stitches into 1 stitch. So we've got 2, and then we're going to go over, through and off. So it's exactly the same as a purl, except we're going into 2 stitches at the same time. Over, through and off. So this time there isn't an instruction to cast off, it's just to purl 2 together 6 times. That's 3, 4, 5, 6. So that will leave us with 6 stitches. And there is our head. We can see what it looks like. You can see the shape in here. That's where we were decreasing stitches. You see how neat that looks. And the next instruction is to gather the final 6 stitches. So we're going to cut the yarn, but we're going to leave quite a long strand because we're going to be sewing up as well. So if in doubt, just leave extra, and then it saves you having to add an extra strand. So we've left all of that. So we're going to, the instruction says to thread the strand onto your needle. So if you bought a kit, that'll be the one that comes with it, or the wide-eyed needle. And it says to put all of those stitches onto your needle. So all we're going to do is pop the needle down the stitch. We're just putting them all onto our needle. You can go right down and do them all at the same time if you want. So we're just going, we're essentially just transferring those last 6 stitches onto our needle. Pulling our thread through. And gathering our little nose. This is going to be the nose. So we're pulling that quite tight. We don't want a hole in the end of the nose. And now we're just going to use mattress stitch to sew down there. So if you remember, we're going to go through there. So we're doing 1 stitch and then doing another one at the same place. Keep it as neat as possible, but it doesn't have to be exact, because this section we will make sure goes underneath the bunny head, so it won't be as seen. So we're just picking up a bar each time, pulling them, and then we've done about 3, so we're just going to then pull together. So we don't want it so that it's gathering, but we just want it so that it's neatly together without gathering. That's the aim. So on there, that's a stitch. So I'm just going under the little bar that's under there, and then I'm just going to do 1 at a time. So I'm just doing 1 stitch at a time and working our way down. So I've went in that stitch last time, so I'm going to go into the next one. And if you just, however you work, and just try and keep it quite even. So we've done 1, so we've done 2 or 3. We'll just gather it. Next one. 1. 2, 3. Now what we mustn't forget So we will have to start stuffing it soon. Don't keep accidentally going and then finding you've forgotten to stuff it. I have done that quite a few times. I'm so busy sewing. We all make mistakes. So I'm just keeping going. Now we're going to gather and then just push behind with your finger just to make sure we can't see any visible gaps. I'll just hold those ends together just to make sure they appear to be lining up. If you had one a lot longer, you could leave a slightly bigger gap on the stitches on the one that's too long, and that will just gradually gather it up. What you don't want to do is do a big stitch over here and then it'll pucker up. So you just, if we found that they weren't very even and the front was much longer, I'd just maybe leave a slightly bigger gap, do slightly bigger stitches, and then just keep checking it every few stitches to see if it's improving. And then once it's evened up, just carry on as the one stitch space at a time like we have been doing. Right, so off we go. So we're still gathering. I'll just pull in every few stitches and checking our work. You can't always do an exact stitch because sometimes as you've been decreasing or changing stitches, you have a slightly different looking edge. So sometimes it's not possible, so just work with the nearest that you can. And if you want to do it one row in, you don't have to do it right on the edge ones. You can do it a row in. If there's any untidy edges, then they'll be just gently pulled onto the inside. So that's fine. Right, so we're gathering up again, checking it's not puckering. Oops, that's the next one there. So just gently move along, keeping going. Apologies if there's any slight noises. It's a really warm day today again, so we're have the window up and sometimes there's a little bit of noise in the studio. So I'm just going to keep going a bit more. And then I'm going to start doing the stuffing. So we see the little bunny's head coming to life. So we've still got plenty of space to get the stuffing in. Don't leave it too small, otherwise it does make it a bit more tricky. If you want to start stuffing a bit earlier, then do that, as long as you're not getting the stuffing caught in your stitches, which is quite easy to do. So I've just pulled it apart a little bit like that just to separate it, and then we're just going to put it inside. If in doubt, just use small sections at a time if you're new to it. Just use little bits at a time. I'm popping quite a bit in, because then we're going to give it a good squash around to make sure the head's nice and evenly shaped. All you're looking for is a nice firm head, but not overstuffed so your stuffing's coming out. We want it reasonably firm with the head, and we just want to make sure it's quite even with a smooth surface and not lumpy, and you can easily manipulate the stuffing around from the outside. So we're doing it quite firm. I'm just going to squish it around. Look, we'll give it a roll if you want. Push it in. Make sure there isn't any gaps, big gaps inside where there's no stuffing. So pop it down quite firmly. But you can't see the stuffing through that. That looks pretty good. So we'll add some more now. Oops, there we go. We've still got the strand attached where we started our knitting, but that's okay. We can finish that off, and I'll show you how to do that neatly very soon. In nice shape. That's it. Pushing it all in to make sure there's no spaces, and let's give it a little squish and a turn around. Make sure when you're looking at it, it looks pretty rounded shape. Pop a bit more in. It's almost getting full now. So let's have a look we've got 2 strands there, so that one's from where we originally cast on, so we'll just leave that one where it is. So now it's getting a little bit fuller. It's going to keep popping it in. If you start stuffing earlier, then just stuff so much. Carry on your sewing up and then do a little bit more. Right, so here we are. We're getting there. So we're just going to carry on doing a few more stitches now. So don't get caught around the back of Bunny's head. Oops. So, stitch here. It's definitely not an exact science, so don't worry if they don't quite line up, as long as you're getting them as even as you can. And when you get to the top, it'll seem a bit more tricky. We're just going to pull it up and see how we go. Look, now we've got there. You can see how it's shaping up. Now, I must have been absolutely fibbing to you at the beginning, because that is the back of the head we gathered first. Goodness me, look at that. So that's the back, and this is the nose. So we want a nice nose. So we're going to come down as far as we can until we've only got a small hole, and then we're going to gather those stitches for the nose. That. So we've just got a little hole left there. So what I'm going to do now is just gently, I'm just hooking on the little loops at a time, all the way around that end part. So you can see how small it's got before I'm going to do that. And at this point you can pop a bit more stuff in. And if you've got a gap, don't leave a gap, because we don't want an empty nose. So I'm just going to pop a little bit more in. A good trick to do it is use the back of your knitting needle. You can use a pair of scissors, but just be careful you don't accidentally put your scissors through and damage the main part of your knitting. So we can use the back of a needle. So we're just trying to fill that little extra bit, so he's got a pointy nose, not a little flat nose like that. So we're getting there. Yeah, so we're nearly there. This is worth taking your time with. If you rush this part, you can spoil your finished toy, because if you've really rushed it and not made the shape nice, or you know, not stuffed right into the nose, you could find that you've ruined all your hard work, all your knitting. So that's full. So I'm just going to gather those last few stitches. Now we could actually just pop that inside. I think I'm going to do that. I'm just going to cut it down a bit. It is secure, so there's no problem with it. And I'm going to pop it inside so it stays inside there, and we'll sew it in. Right, so we're just going to carry on gathering. So I'm just grabbing a loop from there. Like gathering it, and then the next loop on the next stitch, and then we'll see what we're going to do. So we're just going all the way around, just gathering a loop on all of the stitches around there. You can't see the stitches clearly, just go around even intervals, and then we're going to go up, pull like magic. So we'll just do one last one. We want to make sure there isn't a gap. So there we have it. Another squish and a shape, so you can see the bunny's head now. That's the where we sewed up. So it's not really neat. It's a little bit, you can see the stitches, but it's pretty neat. So that will go underneath. So we've got just the nice knitting showing on the bunny. Now to finish off, this is a really good way of finishing off. If you go down close to where your wool is and pull it out a few stitches away, try and get between a stitch if possible, and go back in and out a little bit away. Do this 2 or 3 times is ideal. And what we're doing, the thread is getting tangled inside your knitting in the stuffing. It'll disappear. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pull that taut. So pulling it a little bit tight and then cut it pretty close. So I can't find my little scissors, so I've got some bigger ones. And then what happens is that end will retract inside, and it's a great way of finishing off inside your knitting. There we go. So we have one bunny head, and the next video we'll catch you in is making the arm. Thank you for watching.